Hey, what's up, everybody? So I wanted to talk today. A couple people had asked me a couple weeks ago about how I would attack what they call a first assembly. In a sense, how are you going to start thinking about your rough cuts, thinking about really attacking a piece that all you have is all this raw footage. How would you start doing this? So one thing I want to think about is that I consider editing in a lot of ways like puzzle pieces. And what I want to do is really get out of the bins. I want to get all my puzzle pieces from these original, long camera clips. Here's a 6-minute clip. And I want to get them onto a sequence. And from there, let me get rid of all these extra audio tracks here. From there, I want to take this 6-minute sequence and get, again, these small little puzzle pieces, parts that I'm going to be working with. Think about a jigsaw puzzle where if you just opened the box and started randomly trying to put pieces together, not going to work as well as if you separated, all the edges, right? And all the corners or all the parts of a puzzle that are blue and they're in one section. It's going to take more time in the beginning, but it's going to save you a lot of time in the long run and allow you to be more creative. One other thing I want to mention with that is when you start, let's say you just start cutting your piece without even looking at all the footage and whatnot, you're actually going to bring into it a sort of a bias because you don't want to go back and change things that you've already cut. Whether you think you are or not, you're just going to be biased to keep what you already have on there because it's less work, more time to drink. So definitely the first thing I do in this case, and I'll just show you, for example, here, this was let's say it was a 3-minute interview. It's going to wind up being a minute interview sort of on camera. The host is going to say, well, we talked to this Joe Blow the night before the show. And we have here is the camera's raw clips. Some of them are B-roll. Some of them are the actual sit-down interview right here, which was 6 minutes. Is this a B-roll shot? Yeah, this is just B-roll. So I still want to get all of this onto a sequence. I want to be done with this bin. I called it footage here. And think about some places you can be very lucky to have someone log the footage for you. And in this case, I do have a bin where things were logged very nicely and they just, instead of, mistakes and flubs, maybe he said certain lines. So they just gave you the exact ins and outs, maybe with the little pad, of the lines that he said in the interview. And then they very nicely put this B-roll here, clips of what certain things he did. But I'm going to pretend that, in a sense, I don't have that luxury to have that thing. And I want you to think about here, and even this interview, the way I would do it was the first thing I would do would be to get this clip onto a timeline. And from there, what I'm going to do is really just mark it ins and out, play it, right? Obviously, this is before it started. He's nervous, he's sweating, and I'm going to try to find roughly ins and outs of what...
I admit, I am definitely addicted to playing my Xbox.
Right? That's an in and an out right there. And I'm marking it in, and then I'll just keep going until I find the next in. Can play at double speed, keep going, but eventually I want to get the 6-minute clips down to just the puzzle pieces I need. In this case, I know it's only like, I saw from the log, there's only like 10 clips like that. So imagine, and again, I'm not going to do this for real for the time's sake of the video, but imagine these were your puzzle pieces. You went through this, and this is something I think about too, in a sense, because you can't be like super creative every single minute of every day while you're editing. This is a time for you to not think about so much, especially if you're putting together a promo here. So like I'm going to do this right now. I'm going to put this 16-minute segment on here, and it's 16 minutes. I'm not going to play it in the source monitor and then figure out, oh well, I like that clip, let me cut that little bite here and then see what happens. I'm going to do a reverse where I'm going to keep it on the timeline, and I'm really just lifting out, Xing out, whichever one, doesn't really matter. Probably, no, you know what, in a lot of cases I probably will be Xing it out because I don't need the black space in between it. And I'm just getting, in a sense, what could possibly be from the 16-minute segment in a 30-second promo. But I'm not overly super intense about, well, this shot can definitely not make it, this shot might get... I'm not thinking that hard, right? All I'm thinking about is, well, that might be in a promo. That was something that was fairly interesting, right? And so eventually, I took the 16-minute, and now I had X amount of pieces, let's say it was 30 puzzle pieces equaling 2 minutes, okay? And now, from that, in a sense, to even think about, I'm going to duplicate that sequence. Call it something else. Maybe I'll call it the cut instead of, I have a term rough cut with 2 F's. I call a lot of my first sequences. These are all the rough bites. So this is the only thing in theory I'll ever go back to. Once in a while, maybe I'll match frame. Something was a little, I want to get back to the bin. But for the most part, no. For the most part, I'm going to use the things on that original rough cut sequence, and I'm going to copy and source paste them into the monitor and move these puzzle pieces around in a certain way. And think about even if you were doing something with different takes, right? The same thing. I'm just going to move these puzzle pieces. I'm going to hit Control-Alt-C. Now this is in the monitor, bring it somewhere else, and V or B or whatever you want to do to get that back in. And this is the quickest way for me to make what I would call a first assembly. And now in theory, when I have, now the bite's timed out right, now maybe I'll start to add some B-roll. I think the first one he talked about playing the Xbox, right? Now I have the B-roll, and I would put that on V2. And whatnot. I don't go that crazy as far as I know some people like to put this was a special take. This was a great moment. And they put that on V2, right? That, you could definitely do something like that. You could also use markers. So I could put something like that. Best take. And that will maybe remind me that it's the best take. I don't really even use that too much, but I'm lucky that I'm not working with 2-hour documentaries. If I was, I would think I would have a ton of these sequences based on different parts of, again, the giant puzzle that you're working on. So parts of either different people's interviews, the different B-roll about certain sections. Yes, sections would have its own sequences. And then in theory, what I'm doing is just going back and forth between the certain sequences. And again, I don't know, it's something I like to do. I don't like to go into this source record mode. I do think it's a waste of time. I think you could just double click, copy source paste into monitor, double click back to your other sequence, and there you have a way to go back and forth between the two sequences. So just something to think about as far as attacking a first assembly. And the biggest thing that you don't want to do is go over your rough cut or make sure you duplicate your sequence and have those old version copies of it. You definitely want multiple versions of your sequences. So that's one way to think about doing a rough cut. There might be a better way, and if there is a better way, please leave the comments below, and especially leave your beer recommendations. That's the favorite thing I get from this channel is people recommend me good session IPAs are my favorite. The new course is now up at avidbeer.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.